27th. It's Friday. It's sunny and let's see, 74 degrees in Orlando, Florida on my porch. I'm going to just talk about three things: a destination, a delectable, and my deliberation will just be on some of my favorite books and shows, movies that I watched in 2021, because my videos were getting way too long talking about things that I've heard about, discoveries. And one discovery that came across to me this week, I was talking to someone about Medicare, my Medicare advisor, who I said, your phone number's in Everglades, and she says, no, I'm in Bonita Springs. I'm like, oh, well, I don't know where that is. And she said it was by Fort Myers. So we got to talking about it, and she said that there is a catamaran that goes from Fort Myers to the Keys, because I said, oh, I wanted to go on a bus trip to the Keys. I didn't want to drive it by myself. And she says, oh, it takes far too long to drive, and especially across that bridge that goes for miles. So she said the catamaran goes to the Keys. She said 9 a.m., but I went on the website and it said 7 a.m. from Fort Myers. And she's like, you can take your bike on the boat, and then it leaves Key West at 5 or 6 p.m. to go back to Fort Myers. So I was kind of checking it out to see what the deal was with this. It's called Key West Express at keywestexpress.net, and the prices are different for if you're going from Monday to Thursday or Friday to Sunday, what your age is, if you're a senior, if you're a kid. But I guess the best pricing is $142 round trip, and it is and that's for an adult between Monday and Thursday. And I think but that's also prepaid. If you buy the ticket, I think a week in advance, or maybe more, I don't know how far in advance you can buy it, but it's got to be the week before, you get the lowest price. I think if you buy the ticket the day of, it's $172 for an adult. If you're a senior over 62, it's $162. A bike will cost $76 more, according to the prices today. And you can bring a carry-on bag, but certain bags, if it's too big, it's like $30 extra. If there's no storage, so if you're going off the boat to just kind of walk around, if you plan to stay overnight, it's better to drop your bag at the hotel. I think they don't have storage on the boat. When you get off, it's at Grinnell Street, Key West, Florida. There's a maritime museum, Truman Little White House. I don't know what that is. Oh, the Truman Little White House. I guess President Truman's White House was in Key West. Fancy. And then there's a lighthouse, Key West Lighthouse. There's the southernmost point of the continental USA, which is, I assume, a photo op. There's a dog beach. There is also a state park, Fort Zachary Taylor State Park. There are I'm sure there's some bed and breakfast and stuff, but there is a Fairfield Inn and Suites by Marriott, Key West, Parrot Key Hotel and Villas. There was something interesting. There's a place out in the middle of nowhere, Dry Tortugas National Park. It's in the middle of nowhere. I saw the name on the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and I said, I don't see anything there. So I zoomed in, and there's this tiny little island. And they showed turtles in the picture on the website. There's a Ghosts and Gravestones tour in Key West. I'm sure there's a ghost tour everywhere, and I love to do those. St. Augustine has them too. Ernest Hemingway's home and museum, the Maritime Museum, and there are some underwater adventures. I don't know. There are sailing charters and Hemingway tours. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff to do down there, and you can do it for the day. You can stay in Fort Myers. I don't live that close to Fort Myers. I don't know how long it would take, maybe 4 hours from Orlando, but to drive there. And there's also Sanibel Island is not far from there. So yeah, I just thought that sounded like an interesting way to get to the Keys without having to drive the whole way. And so that's my destination finding. I think I'm going to try to get there. So my delectable to talk about, which I love, and I go way out of my way to buy it, and it's more expensive than most, is Talenti Organic Gelato, oak-aged vanilla, and it is the best tasting vanilla frozen dessert ice cream that I have found. It says it's only got Madagascar vanilla in it, and there is, you know, a Talenti Madagascar vanilla flavor, but compared to the Madagascar vanilla, this Talenti oak-aged vanilla has just so much more of a depth of flavor. It tastes as if there's like a bourbony hint to it. It just it's addictive to me because it's just so much more flavorful. Either that or they use a ton more of vanilla in it, and maybe the oak adds some kind of a vanilla hint of vanilla to it, but yeah, usually oak aged is for wine, and maybe that's why I was initially attracted to it, but the only place I've been able to find it is at Whole Foods, and actually if you order Whole Foods from Amazon Prime, they'll deliver it to your door. During COVID, I didn't have any problem with getting Amazon Prime delivery. They didn't ask me for, you know, delivery times or anything. They just said it would be delivered within a certain number of hours. I didn't have to tip anybody. Now they were asking for tips. They were saying, you know, what time do you want it delivered? And it was more like Instacart. Instacart it also had a delivery fee, and I thought, I'm paying Amazon Prime. The Talenti, this at Whole Foods is like $6.50 per pint. Okay, so, and I am drinking my Choco Vine wine. It's like a Bailey's. It tastes just like Bailey's to me. So I don't feel like I'm drinking wine in the middle of the day. It's like chocolate milk with a touch of alcohol. One of my favorites. Okay, so I was thinking about the things that I watched and read this year. I'm in a book club. I don't always like the books that we read. Some of them are fiction. Most of them are fiction. And it seems that I keep picking the books that are like about code breakers for some reason. And that's my book is this month, so it's about the Rose Code, which I did like very much, by Kate Quinn. I also picked The Dutch House, and I really, really liked it because I listened to it on Audible, and Tom Hanks was the narrator, and it's like unbelievably so much better when someone like Tom Hanks reads the book, because he just knows how to express everything, and the tone of voice changes, and he doesn't imitate like women's voices, like when he's doing the woman's quoting what a woman is saying, but it's just it was so entertaining. I just listened to it nonstop. I have to say that it was The Dutch House. Very enjoyable. Other books I read for the book club, Hamnet. It was about Shakespeare without ever mentioning Shakespeare as being the main character, but Hamnet was the son of Shakespeare who died And I think the author, it's a historic fiction that was really, really well done. It was very sad at times, and it talked about his wife and how she encouraged him to go to London to work, to do what he loved. His father made gloves and sold them, and Shakespeare was originally doing that, and he ended up going to London and not really returning home. But it was kind of interesting to read because this talked about the was it the Black Death, or no, the bubonic plague, and it was so interesting the way the author described how one of Shakespeare's children gets it, how the disease was carried to this child, how she became infected, and it was amazing the way that it was described, and being COVID and the lockdown and the pandemic, it was very appropriate for this time of life, this era of lockdown. I did read a book, Meet Me at the Museum. I don't remember what the story was, but I remember liking it. I read 2 books, which I have a podcast on my other website, gettinghungary.com, like Hungary the country, and it's Accidental Empress and Sissy Empress on Her Own. It's about the Queen of Hungary, Sissy, Empress Elizabeth of Austria-Hungary, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And I was very interested in it because I did go to her summer palace in Budapest, and I happened to read about it, and then I noticed that the author was Alison Pataki, whose father had been Governor Pataki of New York, I think in the 90s and early 2000s, and I ended up contacting her and interviewing her, which was very good. And she's got another book coming out that I'm interested in reading on Marjorie the Post serials heiress, but she also built Mar-a-Lago, and she was hoping it would be the summer White House for presidents, kind of like the Camp David of Florida, which it weirdly ended up being. But so I read that. I also read a book called Soul Dog. I did interview that author on my podcast for Hungarian Aquarian. It's the Dying to Know podcast, and her book was about connecting with a dog very deeply, and also having dog psychics and mediums talking to her, helping her communicate with the dog. Other books, I am interested in those kinds of books, and so Jen Weigel is an author. She was a newswoman, or maybe a producer. Actually, the interesting thing is that all these authors I've interviewed, I'm trying to interview Jen Weigel, but the woman who wrote Soul Dog, what was her name? Manis, Elena Manis. She was a producer of TV documentaries. Alison Pataki was a big-time news journalist, and Jen Weigel was a journalist, and her father was, I think, a sports broadcaster. But Jen Weigel wrote a bunch of books. I think after her father died, she became very interested in what happens to people when they die. So she wrote a bunch of books. One of them, the first one was I'm Spiritual, Damn It. It was a free book for Audible subscribers. So I listened to it, and then she had a whole bunch of other books like This Isn't the Life I Ordered, and Psychics, Healers, and Mediums. She interviewed a bunch of psychics, healers, and mediums in one of her books. She's pretty interesting, and I like listening to it because she does do the narration, and she knows how to narrate pretty well, just because she's a news person. So that's the books, and then so over the year 2021, I was also watching some movies. Um, I liked The Untouchables on Netflix. Don't ask me what it was about, but I remember liking it very much. The Railwayman, Red Joan had, what's her name? Who was she? Judi Dench. That was an interesting. She was a spy. She had been a spy. On PBS, I watched a series, Atlantic Crossing, about the Norwegian queen and king, and apparently there was a rumor that the queen had come to the U.S. for safety because the Nazis were attacking Norway, and the queen. There were rumors that she and Franklin Roosevelt became very close. But Atlantic Crossing kind of gave the hint that she was a mistress. What else? My Salinger year, I liked very much. And I think the young girl that was in that is now in the show, the series, The Maid. I watched a bunch of Christmas movies and series. Home for the Holidays was something, I don't know if it was a Spanish one, but I liked it. It had subtitles, and I think it was dubbed. And it was really, really a different type of show. It wasn't like one of those, like, sugar-coated ones. Like, I did watch The Holiday. I think Cameron Diaz was in it, and that was a little bit more sugar-coated. I did love The Queen's Gambit. I loved it. I loved Schitt's Creek. I watched that whole series twice. I watched Turn twice. Turn, the Long Island Spy Ring, because I had written a series, not a series, I wrote a paper for SUNY Old Westbury on Long Island about the Long Island Spy Ring based in Sag Harbor. The Cook of Castanar, I think it was. The Cook of Castanar was it was kind of predictable, romantic. It was dubbed. It had subtitles also. I liked it. It was different. But it was very predictable of what was going to happen, and kind of dramatic, and I don't like all this phony drama and easy to see coming plot. More recently, I watched A Boy Called Christmas right before Christmas, which I liked very much. It was it a computer animated, nice, interesting movie. I watched Woody Allen's A Rainy Day in New York, and who was in it? Timothy Chalamet, I think. And they play these characters who are supposed to be like if Woody Allen was still in the 70s, he would play the character, and I just think it just doesn't play well now. It's got the same lines, he's got the same theme, the same kind of whiny, complaining character, and it just, I don't know, and it was very predictable, especially if you've watched Woody Allen's films. Being the Ricardos, I liked it very much. I think I was kind of doubting Nicole Kidman as Lucy, but I don't know how she did the voice. Lucy Ricardo's Lucy. What's her name? I can't remember her name. I keep thinking about the Ricardos. Lucille Ball. Her voice was much deeper, and Nicole Kidman's got a more high-pitched voice, but I don't know how she got the deep voice. She must have really done some voice work. The story was not what I had expected, and it was more about their relationship. and business partnership, and how it kind of evolved, but it doesn't go into all the years. I think she's working, Lucy Arnaz is working on a different plot, a different show. It's interesting that she's doing a lot of these shows now, movies or series about her parents, and they're coming out now. It's an interesting thing. I also watched the last Tango in Halifax, and then I guess it shut down for COVID. Never came back, and I really liked it, except one of the characters, Jillian, cried all the time. And I mean, she had a lot of reasons to cry. She was really challenging, a lot of challenges, but there were some things she just could have just enjoyed some positive, and she chose not to. I watched Emily in Paris. I don't even know what age group it's for, whether it's for more for millennials and Gen Z people, but I didn't like her. I was surprised. I didn't know she had been in so many shows and so many productions, and that she was Lily Collins, Phil Collins' daughter. Didn't realize that. I thought, who's this newbie who's acting, and why did they put her in the starring role? I just didn't think she was worth it. But she's actually good in the part. It's just the writing. Maybe it was the writing. The writing's a little too predictable, and the writing is, just the mindset of the characters. It's like, grow up. Just, be real. They're not being real. It's like, I'm going to be good. I'm not going to go after this guy who I'm really in love with, and he's in love with me, because I don't want my friend to get mad at me who broke up with him. It's like, why am I watching this? I might have enjoyed it 50 years ago at that age, but what I do like is the fashions and some of the Paris places, but I like the fashions that they have there, and you think, how are these really young girls all wearing such high-end fashion? So, it's really not realistic. Emily in Paris. I watched The Crown. It was okay. I'm gonna probably watch the newer series, the newer one. I watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Magnificent Mrs. Maisel, whatever it was, the word that describes her. It was okay. I like her sidekick. What's her name? Can't remember. Cracked me up. Very funny. Schitt's Creek. I laughed out loud. I watched 30 Rock because I had never seen it before. That really, like, if I was in a bad mood or depressed, 30 Rock. I even got my brother watching it, and he's not a fan of Alec Baldwin, but he said whoever's doing the writing is just, the early seasons of the writing was really funny. There comes a point around season 7 where it's like, this isn't funny anymore, it's trying too hard. So that's what I like. So I'm not quite sure what I'll be watching next. Oh, another book I read was Stephen King on writing. I've been reading some books on writing and travel writing, since that's what my focus is, memoir writing. And Stephen King on writing was kind of entertaining, where he talks a lot about his own life and how he developed certain characters. So even if you're not a writer, it's a good insight into him and his career and his life. I mean, he talks about the accident, getting hit by a truck, which was like, not cool. And that's it. That's it for this week. Have a good week. If you want to check out my Facebook page, Discovery Dazed, this will be appearing on that, but the website is discoverydaze.com. My other websites are gettinghungry.com and the Facebook page Getting Hungry. It's all about travel, culture, food, wine, events going on in Hungary. And then my other website is HungarianAquarian.com, and that's focused on the astrology, connections to loved ones who have passed. I started a new series on my podcast called Intentions, which is things that happen like when you know, focus, and not even necessarily trying, but what you focus on manifests. And it just talks about the first one. There's only one up right now. It was my story about when I was 12 and what I manifested without even realizing that that was possible. I just kept thinking about this one scenario that I wished would happen, and it happened exactly the way I was imagining it. So, and things like that have happened to me over the years, so I'm going to do a series on that and looking for people to contribute if they're interested. And the connections one too is about people who've had signs or connections to loved ones who've passed. So if you're interested in that, that's HungarianAquarian.com. The podcast is Dying to Know. I haven't put it up on the wide world of podcasts because I'm just trying to figure out that whole thing. I could do it probably pretty easily. Takes me a while to jump off the diving board into the deep end. So, okay, have a good week. Thanks for listening.